very injured or even not coming back home at all.
Jonathan Pollak, you are speaking to us from Jaffa. You are free today, but you've been sentenced to 3 months in prison. You're an Israeli peace activist. Why are you going to jail?
I'm going to jail officially because I rode my bicycle in Tel Aviv in a protest against the siege of Gaza, but I think it should be very obvious that my imprisonment, despite the fact that it gains quite a lot of attention, my imprisonment should be taken in context. And the context is that of crackdown on the Palestinian popular resistance and its support by internationals and Israelis. Dozens and dozens of people are going to jail here for much longer periods of time for similar accusations. Palestinians are tried in military courts under military law. We have 2 different legal systems here. It's a fact that most people do not know. We have 2 different legal systems here, one for Palestinians and one for Israelis in the West Bank. And unfortunately, many of us, the vast majority of Palestinians, of course, are being sent to jail for our resistance to our unarmed and civil resistance to the occupation. One thing I wanted to add about the Bil'in incident is that again, a little bit of context. What happened on Friday was a pretty ordinary event. We marched from the center of the village towards the wall. It was a bigger demonstration than usual. There were about 1,000 people, but the army began shooting towards us, shooting tear gas towards us on sight when we were hundreds of meters away from the wall, simply to disperse us. And they blanketed the entire area. This is a very big open area. They blanketed it with tear gas in a way that allowed no one to escape. And this is the context in which Jawaher was killed in.
Why were you protesting the wall?
I protest the wall for a few reasons. First of all, I believe that it is a mechanism of perpetuating the occupation and of strengthening Israeli control over Palestinians. It is also an instrument of land grab. In this specific case, even the Israeli Supreme Court recognized the fact that the specific path of the wall in Bil'in is an instrument of land grab for the expansion of Jewish settlements, of Jewish-only settlements. The Israeli Supreme Court had even ordered more than 3 years ago that the path of the wall should be dismantled. Despite that fact, the path of the wall still stands in its original position. Despite the fact that it still stands in its original position, in contradiction to the military court, to the Supreme Court's order, the army continues to disperse, to violently disperse demonstrators.
Actually, we should step back a minute. For people who are unfamiliar with this separation wall, explain exactly how large it is, where it extends, why this has become such a focal point of protest.
The separation barrier is one of the most substantial instruments of occupation in recent years. Maybe only be compared to Israeli Jewish-only settlements in the West Bank. It is the border, the internationally recognized border of Israel. The 1949 armistice line is about 300 kilometers, 350 kilometers. The path of the wall is nearly 700 kilometers long, more than twice the length of the recognized border. The reason for that is that it intrudes deep into the West Bank, taking over a lot of Palestinian land in the interests of settlements and settlement expansion, and it also is an instrument in the Israeli policy of dividing the West Bank into several main Bantustan-like areas that are not immediately connected and could be divided on any Israeli whim.
And Dr. Daniel Argo, you were there both as a doctor and also protesting the wall. Can you talk about why you are going to these protests over and over again? And what is the reaction of the Israeli population to your protesting?
I I think most of the reasons that Jonathan talked about are the main political reasons, but I think that there is another important aspect, and this is combined Israeli-Palestinian political activity. The wall, besides being an obstacle for normal life in Palestine, it also serves in many ways as a separation between trying to hide Palestinians as far away as the Israeli government can. And I think these weekly demonstrations in Bil'in and in other villages and in East Jerusalem, when they're combined with Israeli and international activists, is the strongest political statement that we can make. And this is a statement that takes apart all the fears and all the panic that the Israeli government is trying to put on every day, and the most simple act of Israelis and Palestinians demonstrating together, meeting together on a weekly and many times on a daily basis. This is something that shows that different politics in the Middle East are possible. And this is, for me, is a very important thing.
Well, I want to thank you both for being with us. And finally, Jonathan Pollak, when are you going to jail?
In exactly a week, on the 11th.
Jonathan Pollak, Israeli peace activist, Dr. Daniel Argo, Israeli doctor, who regularly takes part in demonstrations against the West Bank separation wall. They were both in Bil'in when Jawaher Abu Rahma died after inhaling massive amounts of tear gas shot by Israeli forces. She died in the hospital in Ramallah. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The Warren.